Hi everybody, welcome back to Missy's Imaginings. I'm going to be looking over a few things that I bought in Salem today. We took a trip, mom, sister, daughters, we took a trip for my mom's birthday to our lovely capital in Salem and did some shopping and had lunch. So I didn't get lots of things, but I had some fun. So the first thing is a bag by Simplicity. It's just a big tote bag, but it comes in this little wrap. And then you can unfold it. Here we go, if I can get it out. So you unfold the little pocket, and then the bag comes out. It's supposed to come out. Well, at least it provides comedy relief. Here we go. Okay, here we go. And I discovered, I just love this bag, but I think I'm going to line it because as much as I love it, it's a little flimsy. So I'm going to make a lining to sew in for the handles and whatnot to just kind of strengthen that up. But isn't that cute? I just love this new Simplicity line of products. I love the aesthetic, the graphics of it. I just think it's adorable. And both sides have different outfits. There we go. Oh, it's all wrinkled though. And my fingers can't get a hold of it. There we go. Isn't that cute? It's just so cute. So I got that bag. Now I'll have to figure out if I can ever refold it and get it back into the little pouch. So we found that bag. That was at Joann. And there was some patterns on sale, which I thought would be fun to try for 14-inch dolls. So I always have fun collecting patterns and having fun with that. New cording for assembling doll cases, some beads, pony beads, and then some facet beads for handles on doll cases on the drawers. So that was fun. I finally found at Hobby Lobby the tiny little grommets and eyelets for shoes because Joann isn't carrying them anymore. They have the normal size that I use for the doll cases, but they didn't have the little bitty ones. And my glasses aren't in, so I don't know what the measurement is, but it's the little ones. So I found a package of 6 different colors, so that'll be fun for shoes. Some information on resin, because I love watching tutorials on resin, and I want to try that. Which brings me to another topic, but we'll save that for later. Then, Simplicity stuff. So I just got the Happy Planner and I love it and I'm using it this year, but I found something that I could not resist. I couldn't resist it. And so it's undated, which is nice because then I can use it for next year. But it's a planner. It's a Simplicity planner. Isn't that the cutest thing? So because it's Simplicity and it's, you know, sewing friendly, so it has stickers. Aren't those cute? So there's lots of stickers in there. I love them. There's pocket sheets. Oh, and it even has, so there's 2 that have, looks like 4 pockets. And then 3 that have 4 pockets. And a full-size Ziploc pocket. And then there's tabs for reference materials. Isn't that cute? Then there's projects, swatches. I love it. And then your calendar starts. So then for every month, of course, you have calendars. And it's all undated. It's kind of in the Happy Planner style with the little rings. So it'll be able to be used with some of the things that I already have. And then you just go ahead and put in your own date, which is nice. So I can save it for next year. But I had no idea how long it would be on the shelf. You know how long they're going to keep something like this in stock. So I snagged it. Plus, my niece on her phone had a 40% off coupon. Oh. So yeah, so I got it for 40% off. So that was nice. So snagged a planner because I love planners. And of course, you just mix Simplicity and then I love it even more. So that was a treasure. Then I'm so bad. Continuing with the Simplicity fun. Now this is going to be really bad luck. I realize that. I totally realize that. But here we go. Let's see if I can do this effectively. Probably not, but here we go. that cute? I love it. It's a Simplicity umbrella. There we go. I hope I didn't knock the camera, right? So that was on sale. Gotta make sure it comes all the way down. Clicks. So that was on sale. And the one gal at the register, she said, "Are you an Oregonian?" And I said, "Yes." And she goes, "And you're buying an umbrella?" And I said, "Well, it's just because it's cute." So there we go. So there's our treasures. Also, just a fun thought. I was given some chocolate at Christmas time. I haven't thrown away all the things yet. The chocolate's long gone. But these little boxes, the samplers, fun size for dolly stuff. So if you see some of these little sampler size and you enjoy all the treasures within, you can save the box because they are a great SD size chocolate box. Just fun. So I have those. Then the other thing, talking about the resin, I'm going to try, and I don't know when I'll get there, but eventually. There's mold making and casting, turning resin into a whole lot of gorgeous. Okay. Ready set resin, reusable mold making material, simply melt and pour. So anyway, I'm going to do some reading, some resin study, because the whole time I've been doing videos, she's been here, and I don't know that I've even addressed the fact that she's sitting here, but this head was my first sculpt. So this, I don't know, I got her done, and I really liked her, and I got her body done, but then the body, because it was polymer clay, it kind of fell apart when I tried to make sure everything fit. So as far as her body, I kind of have to go all the way back to the drawing board. I think there might be some pictures on the blog way back when. I don't even remember when I did her, but this was my first attempt at sculpting, hand sculpting. So her head is hollow. There we go, and she's got eyes in there, and we put the magnets in just for fun, just to see how it would look. But I got her done, and my daughters, they said, "Mom, you sculpted yourself." And I thought, well, she has a lot more narrow chin than I do. I've got plenty here. But anyway, so this was my first attempt at sculpting, and I want to try it again. I don't know if I'll just try again on the body and see if I can do something with her and continue that journey, or if I'll start fresh. I don't know, but I want to get there. I also put a sculpting program on my computer, and I'm still learning the ins and outs of what to do with that. But anyway, so that's why all the time when you watch a video, I have just a head sitting here that's never on a doll, because she's polymer clay, and she's been baked and everything, but even when I tried putting her together, it broke some of the ridges inside, so she's still a little fragile. But I don't know, I liked how she turned out. I don't have the heart, throw away. But anyway, so there she is. She doesn't have a name or anything yet. She was just attempt number one. So I would love to continue that journey of sculpting and learning that, and then learn how to make the mold and cast them and all that fun stuff. But this is as far as I've gotten. So anyway, that's some of the fun things that I did today. And oh yeah. So if you went to the blog or the Facebook page, my fall, yeah. So I'm feeling better. I'm feeling better. We have a very steep driveway. Very, very, very steep driveway. We can't park on it. It's too steep. My father backed up the driveway. We were going to unload something out of his pickup, and his pickup literally slid down the driveway. It was in park, emergency brake on, and it just slid down the driveway. It didn't roll, it just slid because it's so steep, so you can't park on it. So we enjoyed a little bit of winter weather, and I thought it was dry, it looked dry. Everything was dry. The snow was all gone. And I closed the garage door. Whole nother story, our garage door died. So I closed the garage door and got it all latched and everything. And then I was putting my way down the driveway when my foot hit some ice that I didn't realize was there, and down I went. And we're going to church. So I'm laying there in, you know, church clothes on my driveway, and my daughters, they had already gotten in the car and pulled out of the garage and down the driveway, and we're on the street part. And of course they jumped out and they're like, oh no. And then my one daughter, she was going to try to help me. She was in, you know, like 2.5-inch heels. I said, stop, you're going to be down here with me. But then whenever I would try to get up, my feet would just slip on the ice half under me, so I couldn't get up. So then my oldest daughter, she actually, between us and a couple tries, we finally got me up. But because I landed kind of on, not on my bum, but like on the back, the lower back, upper part of my bum, I don't even know what that would be, I knew I wouldn't be able to sit for, you know, an hour and a half. So yeah, so I putted my way back into the house and spent the rest of the day on my side on my bed. And yeah, so it was exciting. Good thing I had vacation planned, so I took a couple days and enjoyed waiting for that to subside. But no, everything's doing well. I'm doing okay, and I'm still sitting a little crooked, but you know, that's okay. It was a little challenging when we went to Salem today, driving over there. Kind of had to sit gingerly, but anyway, so that's okay. So things are looking up, things are looking better, and so we did our shopping today. We had fun, and now we're going to put together the little Peter Pan collar blouse that goes with the overalls from the last video. So we're gonna clean up all this stuff, get the machine out, and start sewing that project. So I'll see you when we switch up the camera. Here I have all the pieces cut out and ready. I did find a little bit of lace that we're going to put on just for anybody who's beginning to sew, so just to see how you can put some lace on the edge of a collar so that the actual edge of the lace is hidden. And we're also going to put some on the sleeves. So we're going to put some elastic on the sleeves so that it will make like a gathering around the upper arm. So I have some elastic here, so we'll be showing how to do that as well. On the pieces, there's 2 of the front facing, 1 of the back facing. I went ahead and on the sleeves, on the inside of the fabric, I folded on the fold line, laid it on there, and just lightly dotted a line. That's where the elastic is going to be placed. So the elastic will be sewn along that line. So those are ready. And then another shout out to Jan, who gave me the wonderful tip of cutting the dart out of your pattern piece. So when you lay it on the fabric, all you have to do is lay it on there and mark your darts, and you don't have to keep bending the pattern pieces. So the front pieces have been marked and the back piece has also been marked, so it's ready to put together. So what we're going to start with is some prep sewing. You know me, I always like to do the prep sewing, and that is to get the sleeves ready and also to get the collar ready. Now on the sleeves, I'm going to grab a doll. So we're going to use Mika for our model here for the elastic. When I'm going to have elastic go around the arm of a doll, I just measure what the actual length is around the arm of the doll, like that, and then I go ahead and cut there. Well, maybe like 1/8 of an inch more. But then I cut there because I want it to be able to stretch around her arm and add some tightness. So I just, like I say, I measure where it touches and then maybe 1/8 of an inch, and that's where I'm going to cut. And then when I sew, there's going to be that 1/4 inch seam allowance that would be about here, so that this will actually stretch and be able to go over her hand because it stretches, and then it will provide that tight place on her arm to keep the puffs in place where I want them. If you're not comfortable with that much stretch, you want it to be a little bit looser, then you can see where it meets and add 1/4 of an inch. And like I say, then the only thing you have to test then is to make sure that when you stretch that length, it's going to go the entire length of your fabric, all stretched out. So that's where we're going to cut this. And I think I left it at a 1/4 inch. So we'll cut there. And I'll make 2 of them. There we go. So there's the elastic. Thank you, Mika. With the lace that I found, there's enough for the collar and there's going to be enough for the sleeves. And it's pretty much exactly what you would need. So I'm going to use the collar first, just so that I make sure I can get all the way around it. And to do the collar, I'm going to pin the lace so that the edge of the lace is right at the edge of the fabric. And I'm going to pin that down. It's hard to do this and keep my hands out of the way. And I'm laying it on the right side of the fabric. Then I'll take this piece, also with the right side of the fabric, so it's like this side, and I'm going to sandwich the lace between those 2 pieces, and then when I sew and flip it right side out, the lace will be sewn into that seam around the edge of the collar. And there's the color. The one thing I thought of while I was sewing is if you're using a gathered lace, this works just fine. If not, if you're using a straight lace, what you're going to want to do is when it goes around a corner, you might want to take a thread and do a light gathering on those corners, just to pull enough so that you have enough of the outside edge of the lace to go around the corner. If it's flat, let's see if I have anything flat. Oh, this is flat. If it's flat and you try to go around a corner, it's going to curve and it's going to make this edge into a corner. So you want to gather that cornered edge that's going to go around the corner so that, let's see if we can smush it up here. There we go. So that you have enough length to actually make that curve without making it fold up, because if you just stake this edge right around the edge, it's going to fold up like this. So like I say, with a gathered lace, it's usually going to work because it's already gathered, and so there's enough of that lace. But you can see where there's little gathers on the straight edge. There's not a lot of gather on the corners. It kind of flattens out, and that's because it's going around a corner. So you want to watch for that. So we're going to go ahead and let's top stitch just to stay stitch this edge to keep it together. And here my stay stitching is inside the seam, the 1/4 inch seam allowance. There we go. And that's all it is stay stitching. So there we go, stay stitching. And to mark the center, I'm going to match the edges of the fabric and put a notch. So there, my collar is all ready to put on to the shirt. If you'd like, you can always top stitch this edge if that's something you want to do, but I'm probably not going to do that. Now on the sleeves, before I work on the elastic, I'm going to put a basting stitch across the top shoulder just so I can fit that in better. So I'm going to go to, on my machine, the largest stitch length is a 5. So I'm going to go to a 4 because I'm working with doll clothing. Yeah, a 4, I guess. If you have basting stitches that are too long on doll clothing, what happens is you're going to have like buckled gathering just because the space where you're trying to fit it in isn't as large as on people clothing. There we go. So the basting stitches will do better if they're not quite as big as on people clothing. That way your gathering little ruffles will be smaller and will fit better into doll size clothing. And I'm just doing 2 rows of basting to help my ruffles a little bit. And I don't know that this shirt has a really puffy gathered sleeve, but it's just enough to help it kind of have a little bit of puff and to fit into the shoulders. And so I'm going to do that before I do the elastic, because once the elastic is on here, this is going to tend to want to bunch. The other thing I'm going to do is serge the hem. So I'm going to go ahead and stay stitch it right so that the edge of the lace matches the edge of my serging. And here I'm just stay stitching. And it's still on my basting stitch, but that's fine, it doesn't matter. I'm just doing this to hold it in place. And I'm only about 1/8 of an inch from the edge as far as my stitching. Just right along the edge there. There we go, right to the edge. Now I'm going to trim the lace and all these extra threads. Get them out of the way. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and fold it over, and now I'm actually going to use the regular stitches. So I got rid of my basting, and I'm just going to fold it over just enough so that lace is going to be folded like this. So just my little 1/4 inch hem. So I'm going to fold it over. My little 1/4 inch hem. Okay. Trim that thread. Trim that thread. Alright. So this is the wrong side of the fabric. Got more. There we go. So this is the inside. Then when I turn it to the right side, this is what my little hem looks like with a little lace sticking out. So there we go. Now to put on the elastic. And I do this because once it's already in the shirt, sometimes it gets to be kind of a pain. And so it'll kind of bunch up, but that's not too bad to try to put that in. If you don't want to mess with trying to get the shoulder in after the elastic is on, then you could always do the elastic before you do the side seam, but I'm just going to get it ready here. So to put the elastic in, I have, remember, like a 1/4 inch that I'm going to have as a seam allowance, and then it's going to stretch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay the elastic on that line, and I'm going to anchor this with some back tack. And then I'm gently going to feed this through the machine, but I'm going to be pulling the elastic as I sew. And so with this hand, I hope it's not totally in the way of the camera, I'm going to be getting a grip on that elastic and kind of anchoring it because I don't want it pulling against my needle. And then with this hand, I'm going to be pulling that taut as I sew it. So that's what we're going to do here. So we'll anchor it in. And back tack. And now I have my threads too that I've already back tacked, so I know my threads aren't going to pull loose. So before I can grab a hold of that fabric, obviously because it's still under the foot, I can wrap my finger around those threads a little bit, and I'm going to be pulling this elastic. So I have the 1/4 inch seam allowance in my finger, and I'm going to be pulling it about where the 1/4 inch seam allowance would be, and I'm going to line it up on those dotted lines. And here I do have a machine that sinks the needle, which is convenient. So if you don't have that, you just want to try to ease, so when you're ready to stop and take a breath, you've got your needle sunk. Now here I'm right at the end. I'm going to go as far in as my fingers can, and now I'm going to have to let go, obviously, because my finger won't reach. So now, but my elastic is to the edge of my fabric, so I'm going to back tack. There we go. And pull it out. And what I also sometimes like to do is, because it was a little short there, so I'm going to have to take my seam allowance in a little bit further, but I am going to anchor that elastic going this way as well, just with the back tack. And so that will be inside the seam allowance, but that end was kind of hard to pull there, and it kind of snapped out of my finger just a little bit. There we go. So now, oh, and I'll trim this thread. So now that automatically gathers that little puffiness for our sleeve. So when we sew that together, it'll look like this. So then the sleeve will have that little bit of a puff there. Let's see if we can puff it out a little bit, where the elastic is. So that's what our sleeve is going to look like. And that's how you go ahead and put that elastic in there. So I'm going to do the other sleeve, and then I'll be back to the camera. Now that the prep work is done on the sleeves, I did go ahead and gather this pretty tight, and then I'm going to loosen it up again just to get my threads kind of taut, and then that will kind of be stretched out as I fit it to the shirt, which a lot of those gathers come out, but that way it's kind of ready to place into the sleeve. So my collar is ready and my sleeves are ready. The next thing I'm going to do is put together the facing. So I'm going to sew the facing together at the shoulders, right sides together. And then once the facing is sewn together, I'm going to serge from one hemline all the way up around the back of it and down the other hemline. Here's my facing all put together, and I just serged around the outside. On the doll clothing, I really like, I set my machine, the serger machine, to the measurements for like a rolled hem, but I keep the stitch length still at 2, and I keep both needles in, and it just gives a more narrow serging so that it doesn't take up as much of the fabric. Sometimes if you have the full 1/4 inch line of serging, it gets a little bulky and fat, so I like how that little narrow edge looks a little bit better. And then I also went ahead and laid the seams open. I didn't finish these seams because the facing, when it's in, will cover up the shoulder seams and the shoulder seams on the shirt, because the obviously the collar will be here, and then this is going to be stitched down. So these will never be seen. They'll be hidden by the facing. So I didn't serge those or finish them in any way, just because that would add more bulk. So I'm not going to do that. So here's the facing all done. So we'll get our facing pieces out of the way. Next, I'm going to put the darts in the two front pieces and the back. So I've already marked them, and I'm going to go ahead and put the darts in. Now that the darts are put in, we're going to sew the shirt fronts to the shirt back at the shoulder seams. Now, with the shirt together, I'm going to put the collar into place, and it'll be sewn around. So I want to snip the edges of this piece right to the stay stitching, about a 1/4 inch apart from one another. So we're just going to add some snips here. There we go. And then I'm also going to stay stitch on both the facing and the actual shirt pieces around the neckline, and then I'm going to notch the center and actually notch all the way around there too, so that when I pull that to actually do a seam, it'll just help that to straighten out and be able to sew that collar in a little bit easier. Alright, so now that I have this pinned, I've pinned the collar, sandwiched it between the right sides of the facing neckline and the shirt neckline. So I wanted to make sure that my shoulder seam of the facing and the shoulder seam of the shirt match up. So I did that. So here's on that side and this side. So I made sure those seams matched. Then another way to double check is to make sure that the distance from the edge of the collar to the edge of the shirt and facing are the same. So here, and I'm not going to measure from the lace, just because the lace might be a little bit altered from where it's actually placed, but from the actual edge of the shirt to the edge of the fabric is right at 7/8. There we go. 7/8 on this side. And now I'll come over and I'll measure from the edge of the fabric to where the collar is, and that is also 7/8 inch. So my collar is placed correctly. So I always want to double check that before you start sewing, because you don't want to get all that done and have all that work in pinning and getting everything placed and then have your collar be crooked. The other little hint in putting in a collar is to always make sure that the edge of your collar is up snug with the edge of your fabric, because if you let this collar droop down, then you're going to have raw edges, you know, sticking out once you pull that right sides out. So you always want to double check. So here I have the collar is up snug. I don't know if that'll show in there, so I can put my thumb under the lace. There we go. So the edge of that collar up here is snug with the edge of the fabric, and it's not drooping down, and I've got it pinned in place. So that I've checked for that. And because I'm going to be coming up from this seam, I'm going to put that end pin this way, because I'm going to cross that pin, take the pin out, and then I'll come across the neckline. Over here, I also want to double check and make sure that that fabric for the collar is pulled up snug with the edge, and it is. So now I'll go ahead and pin this. Now I'm going to be sewing along the neckline, so this pin will go across the seam that I'm going to be sewing before I turn the collar. Now I will pin the edges of the front facing, and then when I sew, I'll start at the hem, I'll go up across the neckline, turn, and then come back down. before I clip the corners, I'm going to take a quick peek at my shirt and make sure there aren't any pleats. It looks like there's a tiny, not too bad there. Okay. So I'm looking for pleats that would need to be taken out and fixed. So I don't see any. There was like a slight pucker, but it's not a pleat. And then also on the facing, I'm going to look here, make sure I don't have any pleats. Okay, looks good. So when you're sewing, if you noticed, I'm constantly, because I'm going around a corner, I'm pulling it straight so that I'm fooling the machine into thinking I'm sewing a straight line, but you're actually, you know, going around a corner. So when I sew that line, I'm constantly pulling these down to make sure that I don't have any pleats as I'm going around those curves. So I'm always pulling both, especially at the shoulder seams, pulling that away from the needle, kind of straightening that out, and pulling and tugging on this facing as well to make sure that I don't have it crooked, you know, and then sewing over the top and putting a pleat in there. So it all looks good. So since it's good, I'm going to go ahead and clip these corners. So I'm going to come at an angle and clip the corner and then come down on there and clip that off. And I'm just removing bulk from the tip of that corner so that when I turn it right side out, I won't have a bunch of bulk there. So we'll get those, and now we'll go ahead and I always kind of put my fingernail like in the very tip of the corner and kind of push it out. It just makes it turn a little bit easier. Then of course I have my turning tool that you can stick in there, or even, here we go, I've got a rounded corner on my little measuring to kind of push into the corner, or maybe even the tip. Let's see if we can get the corner to come out. And then on this side, okay. And now I'm going to press the seam and press the facing back into the shirt, and press the facing down back into the shirt and away from the collar. There we go. So we've got that much down, and then I'll go ahead and press it, and I'll be back. So I'm back after pressing this. I had a very disturbing event here. I've never had this happen with seersucker before, but when I went to press the first dart down, it got rid of the seersucker pucker. So I'm hoping that when the fabric gets wet, that will come back. But so yeah, I've never had a seersucker that would lose its pucker that fast. So then when I did the other pleats, or the other darts, I kind of had to make sure I was only pressing the very edge of the dart. And yeah, so it kind of pressed out the little pucker, so that was kind of sad. So I guess be careful if you're getting a seersucker fabric, make sure it's a good quality one, or the little bubbles will come out when you press it. I remember having seersucker clothing, and I would iron, and you know, because when it came out of the wash it was really wrinkly, but I never had it completely lose all the pucker. Oh well, there we go. So this side's a little flat, but now we'll continue on. So the next step is to go ahead and put in the sleeves, but there's one thing that I thought that I'm going to do first, and that is I'm going to go ahead and serge from the bottom edge of the front up to the arm, and then from the arm down around the back and up to the arm again, and then on the front and up to the arm here, just because when I sew these side seams, I'm going to come down about this far, but then this edge is, because it's curved, I want to be able to hem that and to serge around that curve once the side seams are put together would be very difficult on a serger. So I'm going to serge it first, so that way once I put the side seams together and then I go to hem it, then I can make those curves where it's not actually sewn all the way down to just a flat hemline a little bit easier. So I'm going to serge finish around that. I'm going to take the seam where the facing and the front meet, and I'm going to lay that towards the facing when I go around that edge. So I'm going to serge that, and then I'll be back. Okay, now that I have those edges finished, I'm going to take the sleeves, and with the right sides together, I'm going to be placing the sleeves into the armhole. So I'm going to take that shoulder seam and be pinning it to the armhole. When I put these in, and flip it around here, I like to start from the outside edges and work in toward the center. So I'm going to match up the outside and pin it here. There we go. And I'll do a couple pins on this side, just kind of matching up. And I don't want a lot of gathers like around the armhole, like underarm. And so I'm kind of straightening and flattening that out as I go, so that most of my gathers, if any, will just be at the top up by the shoulder. So I'm kind of flattening out that sleeve as I go up that curve and matching that. So there I have 3 pins on this side. Now I'm going to come to the other side of the sleeve and match it with the other side here. There we go. So get those threads out of the way. So then I'll pin that. And that first pin I usually put about a 1/4 inch away from the edge, just FYI, I guess. So there we go. We'll kind of flatten that out. Leave up there. Get those pins in. So now what I have left is this much left on the shirt, but then there is more pucker here, which is a very simple thing, because now I can take the threads, and I usually pull straight on the good side threads rather than the outside threads, just because I want to minimize what threads show on the outside of the shirt. So I can give that a light little tug, and that will form those gathers up at the top. And then I can ease that in, give a little bit more pull there, because I don't want a lot of gathering, like I say, down here. So I'm making sure that it's all up at the shoulder. Kind of adjust those. And now I can gently pull that straight and leave the gathers so that it fits up at the shoulder. Open that shoulder seam and pin it in place. There we go. And now I'm ready to go ahead and sew that shoulder, the armhole, starting at one edge and going across the top, and then there'll be slight gathers up here at the top. If you want to make sure those gathers aren't going to go anywhere, you can always go ahead and put in a couple more pins. They'll just be, you know, real close together. And then you can adjust those gathers how you like, so that it's only gathered within about an inch of space. Only about that much has gathers. The rest of this is all laying pretty much flat. So that way the gathers are only up at the shoulder, up the top of the shoulder, rather than having them down under the arm. So now I'll go ahead and stitch along here. And I am going to lay this with the sleeve down, because that way I can be pulling and making sure I don't have any pleats in the shirt fabric, and there'll only be pleats and gathers on the sleeve. Plus the feed dogs in the machine will help feed these gathers through evenly if they're down towards the feed dogs rather than having them up where the foot is. resting. So I'm getting all my threads out of the way. And once again, I'm going to have a 1/4 inch seam. So I'm going to start at the edge and back tack. And now I am going around a corner and curves, so I'm going to be making sure I've got my fabric pulled, and I'll probably pull out some of these needles or pins as I go. There we go. And I'm making sure I don't have any pleats. I'm going to make sure that seam allowance is open on the shirt. So now, once again, I'm going to remove my pins. There we go. And I'm going to check and make sure that there's no pleats in the shirt, only gathers in the sleeve. And looks good. So now I will go ahead and put the other sleeve in the other side of the shirt. Okay, so it looks like I'm losing my light a little bit, so I will fill you in on the last steps here. So the last thing I'm going to do is turn the shirt wrong side out, and I'm going to be starting at one end of the sleeve and going to the armpit here, the underarm, and then coming down, and I'll sew and leave a little bit of this open saw sewed to about an inch from the actual hemline, and that way when it's turned right side out, it'll have that curve on the hem, on the front and the back pieces. So I'm going to do the underarms next, and down the side seams. Then I'll hem the shirt, and then I'll also turn it back to the right side, and these facings I'll match up the shoulder seam and tack that facing at the shoulder, and then in the back, just very lightly tacking it down in the back just to keep that facing inside the shirt. And so yeah, then I'll go ahead and put the buttons on, and then we'll go ahead and try it on a doll and see how it looks. Okay, so here's the doll with the shirt on, and it's all finished. I went ahead and used some bright little lime green buttons that match the lace. So we'll get her hair pulled back here and take a look at the shirt. So the sleeves are kind of puffy here, so the elastic is doing its job. They went over her hands fine. It's got more room kind of in the front, so if you have a doll that's kind of busty, it'll be fine. Then here's the back. I'll turn around so you can see the back of the shirt. So that's what the back looks like. So there we go. The shirt's all done, and that pattern is on the website, so you can go ahead and help yourself to that pattern and finish out your overalls and a little shirt to go with them. Also, I was rummaging through a bunch of my notions and found there was like one lingerie strap in a package, and I don't even remember ever buying this. It was probably in a bin of stuff that I got, but it got me to thinking, if you want to do the little overalls, instead of buying the little clasps that go on the little bow tie, because they're kind of expensive and you'd have to buy 2 sets, you could get 1 set of lingerie fasteners, because it would give you the one that can slide up and down, and then at the bottom I think there was a little ring that you could use, not in this set, but the one I saw at Joann's. It actually had a little round ring where usually the strap would attach to the garment, and that ring could be used on the end of the straps to go over the buttons. So just another idea if you wanted to try something other than the little bow tie clasps, the lingerie set. And I think the package I looked at it was a little bit less than one bow tie set, and I think there were, let's see, 1, 2, 3, enough for at least 5, I think 5 sets, because there were, in the package there were enough for, well, I'll take that back, 3 sets. So there would have been black, white, or clear little plastic fasteners. So you could use those to make your little overalls. So you could try those. So there you go. There's the shirt. We're all done. And have fun, and I will see you next time.